First of all, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We're excited for the UN Global Road Safety Week coming next week, and so this session we're seeing as a pre-event to that, a pre-event as we look forward to advocating for safe walking and cycling, to make walking safe and to make cycling safe. We're particularly excited about this topic because it ties in quite closely to work that we, with our NGOs, have been doing, looking at looking at intersections around the world, and whether they are whether they're built for the people that use them, whether they're built for the people walking, for people cycling, as well as for those going through in the vehicles. So we saw from all of that data, from the 818 mobility snapshots that we collected last year, that NGOs went out onto their streets around the world. They looked at how many pedestrians they were. They looked at what was there for them. Were they walking on the road? Were they able to cross? How fast was the traffic going? And we observed that pedestrians are often overlooked and undercounted, even though quite often they'll make up quite a lot of the road users. So in February, we launched our publication, Mobility Snapshots, using local data to turn dangerous realities into safe, people-centered streets. And aligned to the campaign week, we're excited to share the findings of that publication and what our NGOs found on the streets around the world for the mobility snapshots. We're looking forward to hearing from the team here who did the analysis, and we're looking forward to hearing from some of our NGOs from different regions who will share their experiences and what they found and what streets are really like for the people that use them. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Chuko to talk about what the mobility snapshots are showing us about walking and cycling.
Yeah, thank you very much, Liz. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from the mobility snapshots, we can see that all around the world, people who walk navigate streets that are designed without their safety in mind. Every day they face dangerous conditions like fast-moving traffic, lack of footpaths, and no safe crossing points. And this threatens their lives and their livelihoods. And these things seem normal now. And we've normalized these unsafe and unsustainable streets, even though we have cost-effective, proven interventions to make our streets safer. So here at the Alliance, we and our members set out to draw more attention to this, and we developed and used the mobility snapshots to highlight how unsafe our streets are and to showcase the solutions that can make our communities safer, that can make it more livable and more sustainable so we can go about our daily lives more productively. Next slide, please. So we gathered data using a couple of simple tools we created, the mobility snapshot tools that captured how many people use an intersection during peak hours and whether those intersections have life-saving interventions to protect pedestrians, things like footpaths, crossings, speed limits, and traffic calming. So our focus were on locations that are widely known and are near transport hubs or busy places like markets, locations that have high traffic for pedestrians and where pedestrians mix with vehicles. And we also looked at intersections that lack at least one of the key safety features, such as a formal crossing point, traffic lights, footpaths, traffic calming, and 30 km/h speed limits. So we deliberately selected these kind of intersections because people use them, but they don't have infrastructure to protect the people that use them. And for us to be able to challenge what we've accepted as normal and to push for change to make those intersections safer. Next slide, please. So together with our members, we conducted 118 mobility snapshots in 44 countries across Africa, the Americas, Asia, Pacific, and Europe. Seven of the countries were in high-income countries. And in total, we saw that over 156,000 pedestrians use these intersections daily during peak hours. Next slide, please. We also saw that despite the large number of people that use these intersections daily, they lacked priority interventions to protect pedestrians. So in 102 of the intersections, there were no 330 km/h speed limits. And in over 100 intersections, we didn't see pedestrian crossings on all legs, and there were no traffic calming as well. And 67 of these intersections did not have usable footpaths on all legs. We also partnered with IRAP to assess 55 of these intersections that we are assessed using the star rating mobility snapshot tool. So we assigned star ratings to them and estimated costs for implementing priority interventions that will save lives. So this additional analysis we did showed that if we implement these life-saving interventions, we could reduce the risk of death and serious injury by 60 to 99%. And in some of these intersections, the improvements could cost as little as 5,000 US dollars. And the highest estimate we got was 146,000 US dollars. So if you look at the cost benefit ratio, it makes sense to invest in improving these intersections. Next slide, please. Our findings also showed that a lot of people use these intersections daily on foot as part of their journey to work, to school, and other things they do. But at 25%, at 25% of the intervention of the intersections we assessed, over 1,200 people were recorded walking during peak hour. At 40% of these intersections, between 300 to 1,200 pedestrians use it during peak hours. So, for example, you can see this intersection in Indonesia where over 1,200 people walk during peak hours. Next slide, please. We also saw that people are forced to walk on the road where vehicles are moving. So in 25% of the intersections, there were no footpaths at all. In 21%, footpaths were only on one side. And in 11% of intersections, footpaths were obstructed by things like cars and street vendors. So you can see, for instance, in this intersection close to a school in Colombia, it had no footpaths for children to walk as they commute to and from school. Next slide, please. We also found that people cannot cross the road safely, right? Only 10% of intersections had a usable pedestrian crossing on all legs. 41% had partial crossings and 8% had crossings that were unusable. For example, the painting of the pedestrian crossing had faded, so people can't even see it or use it. And 41% had no crossing at all. So for instance, this intersection in Mexico, where there is no pedestrian crossing for the people that use that intersection. Next slide, please. We also found that speed limits are too high to keep people safe. So in almost half of the intersections we assessed, 46%, the speed limits were above 30 km/h, which is the internationally recognized. Sorry about that. I don't know where that came from. So in 46% of the intersections we assessed, the speed limit was above 30 km/h, and 30 km/h is the internationally recognized safe maximum speed where pedestrians and vehicles mix. 12% of these intersections had speed limits above 50 km/h, and 41% didn't even have any speed limit posted. So drivers were not clear on what speeds they should be doing at that intersection. For example, this intersection in Ecuador where there is no speed limit posted. Next slide, please. We also found that road designs are allowing speeds that are inappropriately high. So in 14% of all the intersections we assessed, only 14% had traffic calming features such as speed bumps. So vehicles could move at any speed across those intersections and endanger the lives of people that walk and cycle and use those intersections. Next slide, please. So we also found that these problems are pervasive across regions, and it's not a low income or high income country thing. Safe pedestrian friendly infrastructure is lacking whether you look at low income or middle income or high income countries. Yes, we know that each country and each region has its own unique challenges, but the fact remains that people are exposed to dangerous conditions where vehicles are moving at high speeds and that people who walk do not have footpaths and crossings they can use at all times. If you move to the next slide, you would also see how pervasive these things are across the priority interventions. But the good thing here is that it's not a hopeless situation that we should just accept and move on and see it as normal. No, there are solutions that are evidence-based and are proven to work in saving lives and protecting people who walk and those who cycle as well.
So I'm here, Patrick, and in this session, we wanted actually to have a discussion because from what Chuk has described in terms of the findings, and these are findings from what you as NGOs did, and we were able to consolidate and as well as put everything into perspective. You can see the power of collecting data that is quite reliable and putting it together to show the picture in a very more amplified manner. So thank you very much. But now in this section, what we wanted to do was to dive deeper into sort of validating and talking about those findings, really to touch on the ground what really happened, and more than just looking at what as NGOs you did to collect this and that, but a more critical look into what this means and what is happening on the ground and what were some of the inspiration behind this. And therefore, to do this, we have 4 NGOs representing India, Argentina, then Africa, where we are going to look at the various issues on the mobility snapshots that you did. So we have Vivian Perrone from Argentina, Richard Owere from Uganda, Shivani Kurana from India, and Sam Nyaude from Zimbabwe. So welcome our NGO in this discussion. And I think just to start us off, I want to ask Vivian and Sam, just Vivian and Sam. Now, we know, and this is quite true, that from what we had been describing about mobility snapshots, that we have accepted these dangerous situations as normal, and it's something we have to deal with. And they seem to be, nobody has raised the flag on this. But so from a casual observer, an ordinary citizen, intersections seem to be survival of the fittest, right? Like you have to be the quickest, you know how to maneuver through the streets, you have to be stronger to fight your way through. If it's a driver, you have to be the fastest, all these things. And they seem to be, that is the adaptation that you have taken in terms of handling the dangerous intersections. But from your informed perspective as an road safety NGO, through that lens, why do you think intersections pose a great risk to road users in general? And why do you think that could be a point, the intersection? So from the pedestrian perspective, Vivian, and then Sam, you can tell us from the cyclist point of view, why you think intersections pose a very great risk. Vivian, over to you. A minute.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. Hello, everybody. Hello from Argentina. Well, as we've just seen, intersections are a great risk for users because they're points where multiple streams of traffic, like for example, cyclists, pedestrians, drivers, where they all converge and where they often cross paths. And we see that this increases the chances of conflict, it increases the chances of collision. Now, why is it dangerous for pedestrians? Well, first of all, we can consider visibility. Sometimes visibility at the intersections is limited. And so then you don't know what the other person is going to do. The pedestrian doesn't know if a car is coming up or not. Apart from this, not all of the intersections are well marked. Afterwards, I'll explain to you why it is that I chose a certain intersection for our mobility snapshot, because sometimes as it is well marked, it can be risky. And we can see that maybe if children are using that intersection, it's not clear for them what it is that they have to do. So, well, all of these factors combined makes the intersection dangerous, not just for pedestrians, but really for everybody that is using them.
Awesome. Thank you, Vivian, for that. And Sam, from your expert lens of road safety, what do you think intersections, and that's why we were like focusing on intersections, where do you think they pose the greatest risk to road users in general and specifically to cyclists?
Yeah, looking at it from a cyclist perspective, it is noticeable in my country that most of the collisions occur in intersections. Why? Because a lot of times you have, like you said, vehicles pushing their way through intersections and not respecting the more vulnerable road users like cyclists and pedestrians. I find that you will find that pedestrian risk is usually lower than cyclist risks, because also cyclists have that sort of right of way in many instances and still get run over by the most powerful vehicle in the intersection. So I think it is a case of disrespect of the law in most instances that poses a great danger to especially cyclists.
Thank you, Sam. So that tells us, you compare the car and the bicycle. The mightier one is the car, so seems to be violating because of that kind of mightiness and so on. So I think an intersection becomes quite an area of what you call convergence of mobility needs. Mobility modes are converging at that point, and therefore there's bound to be conflict if there is no good sort of layout, infrastructure, and all that. So I think that's why, as you know, we are doing intersections, having noticed that there are areas of that. Now, picking up from the points from Sam and Vivian, I would like to come to you, Shivani, and then Richard. Now, based on the information that what we are developing here in this discussion, there is therefore a compelling reason why you chose to do a mobility snapshot at that particular intersection that you selected. Now, what we'd like to see what was missing and what was existing in that intersection that you chose. So what were the cyclists and pedestrians facing in that intersection that prompted you to say, I'm going to this intersection to do the mobility snapshots? You must have reckoned something. So in your response and in our discussion, let us know what was missing and what was existing. Then what was already existing, were they being used by the vulnerable road users like cyclists and pedestrians or not? And if they were not used, why were they being ignored? Why would people not use what is already erected there? So I'll give you over to Shivani. You have 2 minutes to talk to us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patrick, for briefing the concept. I would like to start from why I have selected, or why our organization selected, this particular intersection. So this intersection has a mixed land use development on both the sides of the road. But unfortunately, there is visibility issues not at the junction, visibility issues of the cyclist, visibility that these people are not visible to the government, to the stakeholders, to the enforcement agencies, to the drivers. When we go and talk to the people and to the government that we need interventions for pedestrians and cyclists, they say, where are they? They are not so much, they're very little. Why to do so much thing for so little people? I mean, for people who are so little in number. There are a lot of cars. We need interventions for cars. Cars can go speedily. Why to stop the cars for the pedestrians to cross? They're very little. So I think we took this intersection because these people were invisible to our government. And there were a lot in number. When we assessed the data and we did the mobility snapshot through the same help, We saw pictures of hundreds of people crossing in an hour. If the data says 6,000 pedestrians crossed in the peak hour and more than 1,000 cyclists in a day, so this number can't be ignored. If you stand at a junction, you will see people crossing. I think this was our primary reason why we selected this intersection. And one more important thing, this is a national highway. So there is a connection of a minor road with a national highway. So national highway in India is always treated differently. National highway has a purpose of high speed corridor. But so we have some clashes how to treat national highway as an urban road but not as a national highway. I'll discuss it later, but you can carry on. Thank you.
Amazing point there. Something also very new, like they are ignored because the numbers have not been really put together who is crossing as a pedestrian, and we only see cars because they are bigger, they are faster. That is amazing on how you choose that, putting into the limelight about the people who are being ignored, and that's very common. So thank you, Shivani. And let's hear from in Uganda, Richard. Why did you choose that intervention? If in the additional point from what Shivani was saying, what was your compelling reason for going to that intersection? Richard, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. Well, the truth is you get to realize how risky and how critical some of the intersections that we have are when you get to the ground. Because this particular intersection that we did, one was located right in front of the National Mosque, and it is three-legged, meaning all the traffic would be converging right in front of the National Mosque. And usually at peak hours, the population becomes too high to the point that you can't access your way. One of the key things that we realized is that pedestrians, there are over 500 pedestrians that within a span of an hour of peak time, and that compared to over 500 motorcycles. Now we haven't even put the vehicles, you haven't put the cyclists. Now this is all happening at one intersection, and we felt it was something that needed attention. So when we got deeper to look at why this was happening, we discovered one, it is not signalized. There was only a minor narrow footpath on one side of one of the actually the feeding roads, and it was blocked, narrow but blocked with different barricades that the existing shops were trying to cordon off the pedestrians, and yet there are schools around this corner. Then there is a taxi park, there is a bus park right there, so it's quite very congested for a pedestrian really to be able to use the intersection. But the other key thing is prior to the snapshot mobility, at this particular intersection, we had painted pedestrian crossing, but because the road is quite wide, there was a minor repairs that were done, and so the pedestrian crossing was removed. Now, students get stuck. They cannot cross from one side to the other because of the wideness of this particular road. There's no demarcations or markings on the road. So it was a bit complicated. The drainage system alone wasn't good. So at the end of the day, you find people get stranded for hours. Children get late for classes because they're waiting by the roadside. And the motorists take over. So the pedestrians are not seen and they're not given way. So we felt this place needed attention, and that's why we took it on.
So thank you so much, Richard. Actually, that reveals to us the different, the differences and similarities between contexts. There could be, contextual differences where you do the mobility snapshots and the compelling reasons based on like the mosque, the number of the traffic of pedestrians and people. So then all of us, those did mobility snapshots. Then there were those sort of findings that you got from Shivani. We hear about the data to highlight the people that are there, although they are not visible, obviously, to the obvious eye because of the cars. You are looking at the predicament of people crossing in Uganda from one street that's wider, then there's no, people are waiting, students are getting late, all this conflict. And therefore, I think with the mobility snapshots may have actually helped you to reveal all these detailed things that are not common to the casual observer. So I want to come to all of you now and look at what you collected from mobility snapshots. You were able to do something in terms of advocacy actions. So you were able to engage government and community, and I'd like you to talk to us about that. What safety measures or what were your advocacy actions and safety measures that you saw being done within the period that you did mobility snapshots, your advocacy steps, and what changes were implemented? So I think I'll start with Vivian. Yes, the advocacy actions from what you found in your mobility snapshots, and then on the ground changes, what was happening?
Okay, well, at the intersection that we chose, there was a crosswalk, but it wasn't well made. First of all, because it wasn't well painted. Just like Richard was saying, sometimes there are improvements that are made on the road, so then they don't repaint the crosswalk. And then because one end of the crosswalk ended up on the other side of the street in a bus stop. So the people that crossed the street mixed up with the people that were waiting for the bus on the other side of the street. Mm-hmm. And then on one side of the street, there was a ramp, but they didn't make the ramp on the other side. So the children that went down with their bicycles, or the people that went with babies and their strollers, when they got to the other side of the street, they had to lift it up on the curb to be able to continue crossing the street. Well, the crosswalk was moved and it was repainted, and the ramp was made on both sides of the street. The thing is that we took 8 months to have this done. First of all, because as the streets were, they were close to a highway and there was a lot of traffic, they had to work at night. But well, we started having meetings with the town hall, with the municipality, and until they understood what changes had to be made, well, we had to have 2 or 3 meetings. And then they told us that we had to have the meetings with a private company, because it was a private company that maintained those roads as it was close to a highway. So we had to again start organizing these meetings. But first of all, we got together with the community that was there, and we took some more pictures and we shared it on the media. So we were able to have these meetings again with the CEOs of this private company. They immediately understood what was needed, and they kept their word and they made the changes. Now, we asked them many times how much money was spent on it, because we said this can be important for other changes that have to be made. And the truth is that they never told us. So we know that the money wasn't a lot, and that the change was very important.
Thank you, Vivian. Absolutely. This very well put, actually, the advocacy actions, and then what even the timeline for the changes on the ground, because that is also very key. They may not have revealed the money based on other reasons, their own personal reasons, revealing the amount of budgets. I think that's usually a big thing that we are fighting, the sort of pushing for governments to be transparent in how much they invest on this, so that can inform decisions and actions moving forward. So thank you for that. Amazing. And Shivani, interested in to see what are the advocacy actions you did, and some of the changes that were implemented. Please take.
Yeah. So I'll talk about that. In India, we usually have, it's from the ministry, central ministry, that there should be a district road safety committee meetings. So we went to the district road safety committee meetings. We took these snapshots and also the video bites of people crossing the roads. We asked them that if you can share your experience without any intervention on the road, how do you, as a user of the road, everyday user, feel about it? We use those videos also to convince or to show it to the commissioners that people are actually facing issues. This is not us who are creating problems. This is what the problem exists, and we want you to see them. So we talked to district commissioners, we talked to police stakeholders like the enforcement departments, and we did a trial. So first thing that we did was tactical trial. Tactical trial does not cost much, but has a very bigger impact. So the tactical trial, interestingly mainly was participated by local road safety officers who are any people like us, but aware about these criticalities and wants to do something for the government. They were also happy like a major junction like this has been taken up, and they wanted to participate to bring an impactful change. So we not only involved the police stakeholders, we involved RSOs like local road safety officers, and we also prepared a complete report on the issues of the junctions and we submitted it. After that, continuous discussions for 3 months, we were able to convince the government that there is a need for crossing. Unfortunately, the current existing infrastructure says that there are different layers of roads. There is a highway, there is an overbridge, there is an elevated bridge, and major and minor roads are connecting. So there was no scope of FOB because it's a highway. They cannot give signals. These were the issues because of hierarchy of roads. So now they agreed to give a safe underpass or passage for pedestrians and cyclists to cross, and that is under construction. So these are the few things that they have agreed now, but we are still pushing to do at-grade changes, for which the trial was run for a month and it was successful. And now they have painted the pedestrian crossings at the junction, which is at grade on a national highway, and they have also reduced the speed limits. Earlier also it was said in papers that the speed should be less or with some little speed calming measures, but not effective enough. Now it has been made it better, and pedestrian passages has been segregated using tactical measures. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Actually,
Thank you.
great. We, of course, we have looked at all your mobility snapshots, and I remember the tactical trial that was done in the road that you did.
Yes.
So, and you see that's part of it that can actually catalyze the government to see what are people doing. And I think it's also very good that during the trial that was done, observing how pedestrians are behaving, how they, the motorists, the speed and all that. So that's a very good eye opener in terms of that can be short fixes that can promote long-term intervention for that. So thank you so much for that, Shivani. And on your side, Sam, before I come to Richard, what was the advocacy actions in Zimbabwe when you did your mobility snapshot? And has been there any change on the ground?
Oh, yes. So for us, our advocacy action was centered on creating a pedestrian crossing space in a high traffic 5-lane road. And this is along a national highway, but then that is within the urban setting of Harare. So this came up as a development of a new road construction that was leading to our new parliament building. And obviously with the widening of the road came, faster traffic in the area. But this is a residential area that has at least 3 primary schools in the area, and also a small shopping center that is close by, and a huge church in that area. So for us, the construction of the road was concluded just before the opening of schools. And we realized that this would pose great risk to scholars on their journeys to school. And we started writing to the Ministry of Transport, obviously being the owners of the road, to request a safe space for crossing at that part of the road. So after that, unfortunately, our request was not positively accepted, and we tried to get the local police to try to come and man that space for when schools open. That again fails to happen, and unfortunately, I think within 3 weeks of schools opening, a parent was hit and killed while taking their child to school on that very same intersection space that we had requested for traffic calming and pedestrian crossing. So after the death of that woman, unfortunately, that's what it took for action to be expedited. And then we got the pedestrian crossing that we'd requested painted. And then we also got rumble strips installed at the first time. And then further on, we requested an extra set of traffic calming and another set of rumble strips and speed humps was installed further down the road. So eventually now we've got relatively safer space, but that still poses high risk for pedestrians. Unfortunately, there is no space for cyclists because the new road gobbled up the old cycle track, and all the tracks, the lanes for motorized traffic. We're still working on trying to get a raised pedestrian crossing and a regular police presence to assist with crossing, especially during school terms.
Absolutely. A very interesting story there with sad and also hope, sadness and hope at the same time, that it took the life of a woman pedestrian to actually galvanize the government to take action. And this actually still points out why the ground NGOs are very important on the ground. You're able to take that and use it in terms of like highlight or put a spotlight on the danger of that, because as you're saying, we are looking at the cars and they can move at the highways, takes precedence over the people who are on walking or cycling, and also, as you said, gobbling up, removing the cycling space to make for highways. I think these are points that we need to keep highlighting. And as Shivan was saying, with the data showing, like now you had one dead because of a lack of this, and then how it took. So it's really good for you to keep collecting also the after effect of what has been done so far and promote that to make more and more of the required interventions there. So thank you, Sam. I want to look at in Uganda what happened, the kind of advocacy actions that were there in Uganda and change on the ground, if any. Richard, a minute also. Richard, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, Richard, your internet is a bit frozen, so don't worry. Just try to see whether it can come back.
Okay.
Yeah, just hold on a second. I'll come back to you. Yeah, Richard.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll come back to you in a moment. But I want to quickly jump to you, Vivian, and look at a bit of. Yeah, Richard, just hold on a second. I'll check your internet a bit. I'll come back to you with two issues to discuss. Yeah. So, Vivian, in terms of the things that were happened on the ground, you say there were ramps, there was crossing. That on the other side, the two ramps were now, aligned to each other. Now, has the pedestrian perceptions changed? Have you seen sort of behavior, kind of people are happy or attitude? Have you been able to do that? Speed violations, have they reduced? In general, what is the impact of the changes that were done based on your advocacy and the work on the ground? And as you answer that, are you looking at the next steps, and can your advocacy be scaled up? Do you see any positive outcome from the government and the people you're advocating to?
Well, after what Sam just said, I feel that I should tell you that today it's 23 years since my son was killed. And if I'm here and if I'm talking to everybody, it's because I'm sure, I know, I have it in my heart that all of this advocacy work that we're doing has its results. Yes, everything that we do can be seen in the different countries where we're working. So this that we did at the intersection, well, I was able to see that the pedestrians, the cyclists, the drivers, now they all use this intersection, including myself. Before I didn't use it, I used to go around it because it was very dangerous. And now we all use it because we can see that safety and order there has been improved. There's a roundabout ahead, so the drivers slow down and the children can cross the street, because there at this intersection there is a school, there's a club, and there's a fast food restaurant. So there are many children that go to the school by bike, or they walk there, or they go to the club. And something that I learned when we were doing this work with them, of course we know that the pedestrian crossing is very important, but for children it's like a visual aid that shows them precisely where it is that they have to cross, up to what limit they can reach, yes, when they're crossing the street. And they felt sure because of this crossing that was well painted. They told me that it was like a visual cue for them. And this is important because it's a space that is shared with drivers. And of course, the driver should yield the right of way to the pedestrians, right? So, as regards the ramp, now it's not just used by the disabled, there are disabled children that go to school, but also by parents with their strollers. And before, the cyclists that used it, they used to weave into the traffic until the other block where there is another ramp. So now they can just cross the street in order. So I believe that we can make an important change with very little. This shows how with very little we can do something so important. And this is where NGOs always have to be present, because it seems like a question of common sense, but sometimes authorities don't see it. So that's where we have to be there, and we have to open their eyes. And what I feel is that these changes have made the road more inclusive for everybody. It can be shared by absolutely everybody.
Thank you, Vivian. I think that points so well. And personally, I'm encouraged to see that there has been some sort of impact on the road user, and looking at what you're saying, the cyclists are able to cross directly without a lot of conflict. So it has reduced conflict, encouraged people, safety culture, even for the drivers and so on, and also small children. I think this is part of the positive things we see on the ground, and based on the work, again, as NGOs that we are doing on the ground. Now, there could be still gaps existing, but there is also encouraging, using that as a model to encourage the authorities to really replicate or scale up these in other areas. And I'm hoping at some point they'll tell you the budget. I think we'll be very interested to see the budget that was used there, so that we can see what those small changes, low-cost interventions that resulting in big impact. So, Richard, I think you are now okay. I was just looking at, I think I'll combine you in two questions. The advocacy actions, quickly what you did, and then if there were on the ground changes, and basically has there been an impact on the road user in that intersection?
Thank you, Patrick. I've decided to change to another office. Hopefully I am loud and clear.
And very, very sharp. Yeah, sharp looking.
Thank you. What I didn't mention earlier is that we did actually snapshot mobility on two different intersections. One being very critical, to the point that, of course, school children were being knocked there, and this particular school that is located near this intersection, we've had some past interactions, and we have a road safety club that we oversee in that particular school. So every now and then the head teacher keeps calling us, giving us reports of children being knocked right in front of the school gate. And so with all this built up, we combined and we identified these two intersections, took photos of the critical parts, the missing interventions that we expect to be on ground, the poor drainage system, the lack of lighting, and all this we photographed clearly. And then we did the traffic count, beefed up everything together, and then we engaged the stakeholders why certain things were happening the way they were, because some of these intersections had shops, offices close by, taxi parks close by. So when we had interactions with the neighboring stakeholders, one of the things that came out was in one of the intersections that there was a particular shop that didn't want traffic lights, signalized the traffic lights actually to be installed at that intersection, because for him it had impact on his business. And so we discovered there was a bit of mix up, there was a bit of lack of cooperation, and this for us became a fueling move. And with the results that came out from the star rating, we combined, wrote to the city authority, and made clear asks on the interventions that we need on the two both intersections. So it came out that while we were doing this, of course, there were also other NGOs that were equally doing snapshot mobility. And so we amplified our voices, said we need now to do a follow-up and make sure we make this a big deal. So we decided to do combined follow-up with other CSOs like Ureno and Hovita. So we did a follow-up to the city authority. We had meetings with them. We brought out these issues clearly to them. And while we were doing this, we were on social media. We brought down media houses, showed them the criticalities of these intersections. For example, there is one that is right in front of the National Mosque, how it becomes, congested on a Friday, when people are supposed to be going for worship. So it was a critical issue, and the city authority couldn't take it.
Yeah. So, Richard, for the interest of time, actually, you are giving a very, very, also very important point in terms of in-country groups teaming up to make a bigger voice. And I think I don't mean to be rude and stop you there, but for the interest of time, you have actually described another new aspect of how you are advocating, and also the community buy-in and resistance. That's something that we should be aware of as we are bringing all these changes. So I want us to stop there, and I think our parting shot will be from Shivani. A quick one, Shivani, 1 minute of whether there is any impact on that particular highway. And as you're saying, I know you mentioned it, but as a concluding sort of discussion point, what do you see as the next steps as you describe them quickly, and then scaling up on that in terms of the interventions that are done one intersection per intersection? So Shivani, if you can tell us the impact and the remaining gaps on your intersection, please, a minute.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. So in a minute, I'll say that we have changed the perception, or we were able to change the perception of the government and of the people using the road, that yes, there is a need to stop and give way to the slow moving vehicles and prioritize the need of other road users too. Second, we were able to do the tactical trial through which we have reduced the road crashes, at least in the daytime, if not in the nighttime. So the conflict points have been reduced through the trial measures, and we have also made it approved that the permanent construction has been started and it is underway. So the other thing that I want to scale up, or that we as an organization want to scale up, is through this intersection, taking it as an example, we are doing multiple intersections at the highway. But these the black spots on highway should not be repeated. Therefore, we are also doing a dialogue with the authorities in the city that highways crossing through the land use of a residential and a mixed development should be treated as urban roads and not as straight corridors. So, thank you.
Great way actually to end it. But I think I want to thank all of you, the panelists, for I think it was for me very lively and also very useful and helpful discussion. I hope other members, other participants have enjoyed and took something home, the takeaways, and also to feel inspired and encouraged that things that we are doing are really bringing a difference on the ground. So I think I want to stop there. Thank you once again for your time and inputs, and hand over to Elena. Is it Elena or for the next part of concluding the session today?
Thank you so much, Patrick. I think we have Chika back on now for her to take off.
I'm back. And sincere apologies for dropping out just as Chuku was handing over to me. But I think it was far more interesting to hear from our NGOs on the ground. Thank you so much, Vivian and Shivani and Richard and Sam. You've outlined the solutions that you have advocated for and that are being implemented because of your advocacy. So I'll just do a very quick summary. So we've identified what's missing, and they are the proven solutions that going to keep the people who are walking safe, but also encourage more people to walk and walk more. That's what we want for our sustainable future. And the fundamental is that we keep a low speed environment. And so in order to do that, these are the three key interventions that can create a low speed environment. That's 30K, ideally 30K or lower speed limits. But of course, if you aren't able to achieve 30K, any lowering of speed limits from 80 to 70, 70 to 60, 60 to 50, just even a 10K reduction will have a benefit. So lower speed limits as a principle. And then pedestrian facilities, meaning paths and facilities or crossing points that are dedicated for pedestrians. So it's not just a decoration on the road. It has legal authority that prioritize pedestrians. When there is a zebra crossing, a black and white crossing, pedestrians have the legal priority to cross, and not the cars. Footpaths, they're not shared with the motorized vehicles. They are paths that are specifically designed for pedestrians. That's the kind of pedestrian facilities that we're after. And then traffic calming, there's a few examples that I think Sam shared about the rumble strips, or raised crossing, speed humps on approach to a crossing point or an intersection to force the motor vehicles to slow down for the pedestrians. And these can be really cost effective because we can rely on, of course, it's really great to have police enforcement, but you can only have them, 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day, twice a week, whatever. It can't be 24/7 police enforcement unless it's a camera. Whereas these traffic calming, because it's already designed into the road, 24/7, the traffic calming is going to be there to enforce the motor vehicles to slow down for pedestrians to cross safely. So these are the key priority interventions that we are calling for. And then, of course, next week, UN Global Road Safety Week, we're advocating for safe walking and cycling. And I hope that you will all join in doing more mobility snapshots this year. The tool is being updated to include cyclists and cycle infrastructure, so that we can even more strengthen our advocacy for safe walking as well as safe cycling. So the next slide, we have our call to action, and this is also part of the Mobility Snapshot publication, and we have a call to action to governments. We want our governments to listen to the findings and solutions that are shown in the mobility snapshots, allocate the funding. We need the funding so that we can implement these evidence-based interventions, and also apply the learning that's coming out of the mobility snapshots by putting the people at the heart, at the center of the design and modifications to existing roads. And then what can NGOs do? Well, use the mobility snapshots to shine a light on these intersections that are not protecting people yet, and collect more concrete examples using mobility snapshots so that we can build this demand for people's right to safe mobility and holding our governments accountable. So I will stop there and pass over to Liz to wrap up the session. Thank you very much. And again, apologies for disconnecting.
Thanks, Chika. And I will just close very quickly. So we really hope that you're as excited as we are to get advocating next week during UN Global Road Safety Week for make walking safe and make cycling safe. So we know that walking and cycling are healthy. They're good for us. We know that they are sustainable. They're not adding to pollution. They're not adding to climate change. They're not adding to congestion. And they're affordable. Anybody can afford to walk. So at some point in our journeys, we are all pedestrians. But we can only be pushing those methods if they are safe. And so why are people who walk and cycle undercounted and overlooked? And why are our streets not built for the people that actually use them? So UN Global Road Safety Week is an excellent opportunity to get safe walking and cycling onto the agenda. It seems, as we talk to people, that people are so used to just dodging cars and creeping alongside the road that they forget that actually it should be our right to walk safely and to cycle safely. And it's an excellent opportunity, as Chika has pointed out, to advocate for very specific interventions, to be able to say to a decision maker, you need to prioritise walking and cycling. And here are some simple, straightforward, specific ways that have been evidence-based to do that. We know that 30-kilometre-an-hour limits save lives. We know that footpaths keep pedestrians safe. We know that crossings are necessary and that people are getting killed because there are none. These are very specific, concrete things that can be done, and in a lot of cases, they're cost effective as well. We know as well that decision makers have a choice. Our streets reflect the chosen priorities of our authorities. And we want to change that narrative so that those streets reflect the priorities that say that walking and cycling, safe walking and cycling, are essential, and safe walking and cycling are good for everyone. So for next week, we have loads of tools available. Apologies, I can see I've already run over. Please join us, use the snapshots to help you identify what's lacking and the evidence-based solutions to make streets safe for walking and cycling. We have on our website, which Federica has just shared, we have infographics to present your mobility snapshots. We have social media banners you can use. And if you're getting into some deeper advocacy, we really recommend using the accountability toolkit. I don't know, Federica, you can share that in the link as well. Which is a tool which goes into a great deal of depth, asking you the questions that you can look at to see where your government is on these evidence-based interventions and what they need to do next to put them into place. And with that, I'm just going to stop sharing, I hope. Nope. Yep. So just going to stop sharing there and say thank you very much. Thank you, Chuku, for organising, for Elena for hosting, to Patrick for facilitating, Chika for explaining, and particularly as well to our NGOs. Thank you for sharing actually the realities on the street and how actually as NGOs we have a really powerful role in helping show what's really happening and to push for interventions that can really, really make a difference and save lives. And thank you everybody for joining us.